I was going through an internal process. I had been on the verge of falling amidst temptations that rose up against me. Just when I felt weakest, the Lord snatched me away. Suddenly, my spirit was taken out of my body. I saw hell. I saw the living darkness, breathing, burning, roaring like a beast. I saw demons with black forms, like shadows walking in fire. Some had spears and moved quickly as if celebrating my arrival. I felt their screams echoing in my ears, a language that wasn't human, but that I understood with my soul. I realized that the fire in that place doesn't illuminate. It burns, but it doesn't give light. It is burning darkness. Demons surrounded me. One touched my back with a spear, and it was as if my soul burned from within. I saw worms moving between my spiritual feet, climbing up my back. They were cold, slimy, but burning at the same time. I felt them devouring me from within. It was a sensation I can't describe with human words. And there I heard the Lord, "This is what I wanted to avoid. This mark will be your reminder. If you fall here, you will end up." I understood that this pain was a warning. The Lord was disciplining me before my fall. When I returned to my body, something from hell came back with me. The spiritual worms followed me. I know because I felt their presence. They moved inside me, up my back. I spent days with a discomfort in the same place where I had felt them enter. It was a rash, a constant burning, as if the fire hadn't completely left me. I spent entire nights without sleep, remembering the screams, the smell of sulfur, the darkness that moved like thick smoke. Still traumatized, I continued ministering, but something changed. I could sense when death visited someone, walking the streets, and suddenly the Spirit would tell me, "Go and preach to him because his time is ending." On one occasion, I was preaching in front of a house and I felt that voice again. I saw the face of the man sitting in front. The Lord told me, "Preach to him." I did, but he didn't listen. 3 days later, crossing the street, he was hit by a car and died instantly. On another occasion, while ministering in a ward, I felt the weight of death inside the temple. 5 days later, someone from that same congregation passed away. I began to understand that my experience in hell had not only been a personal warning, but a call to deliver others. Wherever I went, the Lord showed me faces marked with the seal of death. It was a gift, but also a burden. Sometimes I would walk down the street and feel an icy breeze, and the Spirit would tell me, "That person is on the brink." Then I would run, pray, lay hands on people, plead for their souls. Not everyone listened. Some mocked, others wept and repented, but each time I obeyed, the weight inside me was relieved. Once, while traveling by bus to Gaspar Hernandez, something terrifying happened. We were passing through a place called La. I saw in the spirit 5 demons waiting on the side of the road. They were happy, moving as if they were dancing. 20 minutes later, a motorcyclist collided with another vehicle and was dragged under the bus. I saw him die. His body lay motionless, and while everyone screamed, I saw his soul being dragged away by those same entities I had seen before the accident. I knew that demons can wait years for a single opportunity. On another occasion, while I was praying in my room, hell became audible. I wasn't asleep, I was awake. The floor seemed to sink, the heat increased as if a furnace were opening beneath me. I began to hear the screams, the wailing of thousands, the gnashing of teeth, the desperate cries of hopeless souls. I felt the air grow heavy, as if I were inhaling invisible smoke. It was so real that I opened the window seeking relief, but the smell of sulfur remained. That same night, I had a vision. I saw an immense lake of fire, like a liquid ocean of flames. In the center, a gigantic angel was throwing people into the fire. They were a couple. They had Latin faces, perhaps Peruvian or Mexican. I don't know why, but I knew they had rejected God's call. I saw them fall into the fire and disappear. The scene paralyzed me. When I woke up, my body was drenched in sweat and the heat of hell seemed to linger in my room. Years later, while pastoring my first church in Gaspar Hernandez, I remembered that vision. There I met a faithful elder, one of those who seemed to live with one foot in heaven. He had constant visions. Sometimes he would tell me, "Pastor, the angels came last night to worship me," and I believed him because every time he spoke, the presence of God descended. He told me he heard heavenly choirs inside his house, that he saw lights moving in the night. I visited him one early morning and knew he wasn't lying. I felt the atmosphere charged with glory, the air vibrating with something invisible. That old man taught me what silent faithfulness is. When he couldn't go to church, the angels ministered to him. I saw in his eyes the reflection of another world and understood that just as hell is real and can touch the physical, heaven is also real and makes itself present where there are pure hearts. Since that experience, every time I close my eyes in prayer, I feel the fire of God and the memory of the abyss at the same time. I live with the mark of having been delivered and with the responsibility to warn others before it's too late. The Lord allowed me to see such things, profound experiences that even today, when I remember them, my body trembles. In those days I had many spiritual experiences, but there was something in my surroundings that went unnoticed. That faithful elder in my congregation, that man who always arrived early to church and whom many admired for his constancy, hadn't quit smoking. Every time I visited him, I felt sadness in my heart because I saw him light a cigarette, and although his face reflected serenity, his soul carried an invisible burden. I asked myself, Lord, why do you detest smoking if it seems like such a small habit? And the Spirit spoke to me clearly, it's not about what it seems, but about what it represents. It told me that the origin of the cigarette comes from Santeria practices, from ancient pagan rites, from indigenous invocations where smoke was used to call spirits. That's why God told me, that smoke disgusts me, because it comes from the altar of the enemy. Then I understood something terrible. When someone smokes, they feel relief, but that relief doesn't come from the Holy Spirit. It's a fleeting feeling that takes the place of God's presence. He told me, it's a drug disguised as a habit, an illusion that tries to console what only my spirit can heal. And I saw how in many churches, customs, symbols, and practices disguised as peace and well-being are introduced, born from the very depths of hell. Vocals, dances, decorations, even chants that don't come from above, but from the profane, are used unconsciously by God's people. That old man, as the days went by, began to grow spiritually cold. He was a man who knew the word, who had seen angels, but little by little he stopped attending church. One day I learned that his blood pressure had spiked, and after 3 days without news, the news shook me to my core. He had died of a heart attack. I rushed to the wake with my heart shattered. I wept like a son, because for me, the sheep aren't just members. They are my family. When a pastor truly loves, the pain of one person pierces him like a sword. I remember kneeling beside his coffin. Lord, where is his soul? Is he saved? Is he with you? But the silence was profound. I didn't feel the peace that usually fills the air when a child of God departs in grace. There was no confirmation, no heavenly fragrance that often accompanies the saints. Then the Lord answered me in a way I will never forget. As I prayed, I was raptured again. I saw myself descending into a place that vibrated with screams and fire. It was hell, deeper than before. The earth seemed to split open in layers, and as I descended, I heard a mingled mix of voices, millions crying out at once. It was a human roar, an ocean of wailing. The whole place was an enormous cavern filled with tunnels, hollows, fissures, and molten fire flowing like rivers of lava. I felt the smell of sulfur, the unbearable heat, and the living darkness that moved. Then I heard a familiar voice. It was that of my brother in faith, that old man who had died. I saw him. He was in the midst of a flame that completely engulfed him. His spiritual body writhed as he cried out, Lord, have mercy. But there was no answer. The fire covered him, and his weeping resonated in my soul like an endless echo. God allowed me to hear only his voice, isolated from the rest, so that I would understand the magnitude of what happens when someone dies with hidden sins. I wept and said, Father, why him? And the Lord answered me, because he did not finish what he began. Many begin with me, but they stray. I do not look only at the beginning, but at the end. Then I heard a phrase that marked my life. Tell my people that the greatest danger is not in the sins of the flesh, but in the sins of the soul. I saw those words written in fire in the air. The Lord showed me what they meant, sins that seem harmless, hidden thoughts, concealed attitudes, desires disguised as righteousness, customs that people consider normal, but which in heaven are an abomination. He told me, the sin of the soul is what my people call good, but I call evil. And as he said this, I saw images, women of the church posting provocative photos on social media with Bible verses in the captions, mixing holiness with sensuality. I saw men preaching purity and then falling into adultery with their eyes, and the demons. God told me, take those images and drag them to hell along with the souls who provoke them. The Lord took me out of that place with a phrase that resounded like thunder, hell is real, Christ it's coming soon. That voice repeated the same words over and over until I woke up drenched in sweat. The smell of hell still clung to me,